Most people who start reading the One Piece story assume that it will end when Luffy finally finds the One Piece. However, fans who've read further along have now for years believed in a different idea, where the story will continue after the Straw Hats have reached the final island, and the actual climax of the story will be a war where Luffy takes on the entire world. This video will try to break down all the evidence for both of these ideas, and come to a conclusion on what will actually be the final arc of One Piece. Through the early parts of the story, Luffy's journey seems fairly set in stone, as he says from chapter 1 that his goal is to find the One Piece treasure and to become the next Pirate King. Through Luffy's journey, however, it has become clear that this story is about much more than one pirate crew's hunt for treasure. This is because it is later revealed that the pirates' biggest enemy is the tyrannical world government, who rule over most of the One Piece planet. Many readers have with time come to believe that the ultimate endgame of the series is Luffy bringing down the world government after finding the One Piece. This is actually a very natural assumption to make, as the world government's fate is intrinsically connected to the One Piece treasure. This is because we know that the big thing that happens once you find the treasure is that you also learn the true history of the One Piece world. This is something the world government very much does not want anyone to know. The government itself has outlawed any research of the ancient history, and is willing to massacre entire countries in order to hide the truth. The reason for this is that the world government itself was created during this period of erased history, and its creation supposedly involved horrible crimes against the world. The government naturally wants to avoid people finding this out, as it would likely cause people all over the world to rise against them. This is where the idea of the series continuing after the final island comes from. If Luffy were to find the One Piece, he would learn the true history of the entire world. Luffy could then spread this knowledge throughout the world and after centuries finally be the man who will end the rule of the world government. This is something that might have been directly foreshadowed by Whitebeard in his final moments. Whitebeard was actually told the entire history of the world by Goldie Roger after he'd gone to the final island. According to Whitebeard, the government fears a great war that will engulf the whole world in the future. A man will come in the future carrying on his shoulders centuries of history and challenging the world to a fight, and that when the One Piece treasure is found, the world will be turned on its head. This seemingly makes the endgame of the One Piece story very clear. The man Whitebeard is talking about is likely Luffy. Him carrying history on his shoulders and challenging the world to a great war also very clearly seems to imply that Luffy will learn the true history, and after that decide to take down the world government. This is what I myself thought for years, and I've even used this hypothetical outline in many of the videos I've made on this channel. Recently, however, I've actually started to question this. While the government will likely be taken down in the future of the story, and while it still may happen by Luffy's hand, this does not necessarily have to happen after Luffy finds the One Piece. From reading the original Japanese of Whitebeard's last words, he actually gives no timeline in what order the events he speaks of will happen. Whitebeard in his speech essentially makes three separate statements. The world is going to be engulfed in a massive war, a man will come carrying centuries of history on his shoulders and challenge the world, and someone is going to find the One Piece. This does not necessarily mean that finding the One Piece will be the event that will trigger the two other events. This may surprise many of you, as the phrase, a man carrying centuries of history on his shoulders, seems to directly imply that whoever learns the true history on the final island will also start the world war. This may however be false. Even before finding the One Piece, Luffy in the present story has already arguably become the man carrying history on his shoulders. This is because Luffy has now awakened his devil fruit and become Nika, the sun god and warrior of liberation of the One Piece world. Luffy's devil fruit used to belong to the mysterious figure known as Joy Boy, who is the only known character to have also awakened the Nika devil fruit. Joy Boy was the man who fought against the world government centuries ago during the Void Century that the government is trying to erase from all record. As Luffy is seemingly the second coming of Joy Boy, he is already carrying history on his shoulders even before reaching the final island. This can actually be seen in practice in the story. The world government's surviving enemies from centuries ago recognize Luffy as Joy Boy, and many of the ancient peoples of the One Piece world who are not under the government's rule see him as the sun god or the warrior of liberation. The Nika fruit's awakening is something the government has been trying to prevent just as hard as people discovering the true history for centuries. In many ways, Luffy appearing as the sun god in the current story is him carrying history on his shoulders. What's more, Luffy has also arguably fulfilled the second part of Whitebeard's words, where he's challenged the world to a fight. Luffy throughout his journey has frequently been fighting against the world government all the way since he first encountered them. He's taken down many of their most important facilities and soldiers, and has been nothing but a thorn on their side throughout the story. This is on top of the fact that Luffy already literally declared war on the world government all the way back in NES lobby. It is also possible that the Great War that Whitebeard spoke of will happen in the future has already started in the One Piece story. Ever since the end of the Wano arc, the world has been in a state of constant turmoil, where the big players of the world have finally started to move, battles are happening all over the planet, and entire countries are getting wiped out. We We also already know that this final war happening is actually a separate prophecy than the one about someone finding the One Piece. Despite Roger discovering both the true history and that there could be a man in the future who would find the One Piece, Roger by his own admission did not know who this man would be. What the Roger pirates did know, however, was that over 20 years after they'd found the One Piece, a new generation of pirates would swarm the New World and change the course of history. In other words, Luffy's generation of pirates have already made Whitebeard's words about a great war come true by putting the world on fire with their actions throughout the story. This sentiment is actually echoed by Doflamingo. While we do not know the extent of what Dofi knows about the world, it's possible that he's someone like Vegapunk, who's gotten his hands on information about both past and future events. This is because when he was in power, Dofi worked in information gathering, and even managed to blackmail the world government itself with his knowledge. Doflamingo also frequently spoke of the upcoming new era, and after his downfall was convinced that the world would be engulfed in a war for supremacy. It could well be that what Dofi is talking about is the very same future Whitebeard talked about. In other words, the great war that will engulf the world being the state the One Piece world is currently in, and this conflict continuing until the very end of the story. To summarize, it's possible or even likely that what Whitebeard talked about is already in motion. The global war the government is afraid of has started, and Luffy, the man carrying history on his shoulders, has appeared. This only leaves us with Whitebeard's last words, which is that someone will find the One Piece and change the world. This also returns us to the main topic of this video, which is whether finding the One Piece treasure will be the final arc of the story. In light of the prior analysis of Whitebeard's words, this could actually now very well be the case. The final war has now already started, and the world government would actually be genuinely defeated during the race for the One Piece. This is an idea that is seemingly backed up by the events of the Egghead arc. At the end of his broadcast to the world, Vegapunk states that whoever finds the One Piece will decide the fate of the world. This statement is also juxtaposed with a page showing some of the most important figures in One Piece: the Yonko, the Marines, the Revolutionary Army, and the world government. This could very much indicate that the final war in actuality is the race for the One Piece between these groups. This would be further backed up by Vegapunk's own actions in the Egghead arc. Because of his broadcast to the entire world, the world now is fully aware of how evil the world government is. In Vegapunk's broadcast, he revealed the existence of Joy Boy, the fact that the government 800 years ago raised the world's water levels by 200 meters, and that they may soon continue this and sink the entire world. Seemingly, the biggest taboo Vegapunk was not aware of was that the government is actually being ruled by a single king of the world known as Imu. Imu's existence may also be revealed to the world very soon, as both the Revolutionary Army and the World Economic Times now have people who've seen him with their own eyes. What this basically means is that the previous idea of Luffy going to Laugh Tale and revealing the true history to the world has become less important. The world now has more than enough reason to see how evil the government is and rise against them. No matter what Luffy might discover on the final island, Vegapunk with his actions has already done the legwork on turning the public against the government. This however calls into question the importance of the One Piece treasure. The thing that the story has been building up towards for decades is that the important part about the treasure is the true history that reveals how evil the government is. And while this is still likely a part of the treasure, the One Piece itself may be far more important, as even Vegapunk thinks that it will change the world far more than his little broadcast. It could even be that the world government themselves do not know what the One Piece is, and have been trying to get their hands on it just as desperately as the pirates. After all, the One Piece is Joy Boy's treasure, who was the enemy of the government, and he likely wanted to hide it specifically from them. There are several concepts in One Piece that have led a lot of readers to believe the entire story is about bringing down the world government. Both Luffy and Roger have the initial D in their names, and are said to carry the Will of D. The D clan themselves have been referred to as the enemies of God, aka the Celestial Dragons, and the D clan members have consistently been some of the government's biggest adversaries. There is also the concept of the Dawn of the World, believed by many nations of the One Piece world such as the Samurai of Wano or the Minks of Soul. Both these nations also guard the road poneglyphs that tell the location of Laugh Tale, and both seem to believe that the Straw Hats are the crew that will bring the Dawn of the World. As the world government seems to be the embodiment of darkness in the One Piece world, the Dawn could once again be seen as the Straw Hats finally ending their tyranny. However, this interpretation of the story may actually be false. To reiterate, Vegapunk himself believed that his broadcast revealing the truth of the government to the world was minor compared to the actual change that would happen after the One Piece is found. This means that the One Piece treasure is likely far more important than a tool to bring down the world government. It could be something that would fundamentally change the One Piece world to its very core, and on a much deeper level than simply changing who the people ruling the world are. This is not to say that the world government isn't important, but in all truth, the story may not actually revolve around them as much as the readers might expect. This final war that both Joy Boy and Roger spoke about may actually end up being both far bigger than the government itself, or even the war that took place during the Void Century. While the downfall of the government could still happen, it could only be one event in the massive war that will serve as the climax of the One Piece story. One could make the point that this may be putting too high expectations for the story. The One Piece story has for literal decades been building up the world government and their downfall, and it can be hard to imagine something bigger as the story's climax. I think this is a very fair point. However, One Piece does have a history of surpassing the expectations set by the story. Back in the pre-time skip, when things like Joy Boy and Imu were still far in the future of the manga, most of the story was building up towards the ultimate showdown between Whitebeard and the Marines. These expectations were further built up with all the other important characters the readers had already met or heard about being set up to participate in this war. When the Marineford arc finally happened, however, even these expectations were surpassed. While Whitebeard was a central figure in the arc did not end even in his death, but only kept escalating in unexpected directions, like Blackbeard having 2 devil fruits or Shanks arriving at the scene. History may well repeat itself during the final saga, where even if the world government's downfall happens and it will be a massive event, the story will keep getting even bigger. So, to answer the question at the very start of the video, the final arc of the story may quite literally be the One Piece. The collapse of the world government will still likely happen, and it will probably be one of the biggest events in the whole story, but even it could be overshadowed by the One Piece treasure and the actual ending of the story. I suppose this is also the moment where I should bring up that this is also something that has already been pretty much confirmed by Eiichiro Oda. Back in 2022, Oda did an interview with Gosho Aoyama, the author of Detective Conan, celebrating both of their series having surpassed the 100 volume milestone. In the interview, Oda word for word says that the One Piece story will end whenever the One Piece treasure is found. He also says that while the story has taken more than a few detours, it has always been building towards this same planned ending. In other words, if you just clicked on this video to hear facts about the planned ending of One Piece, there's your answer. Sorry it took the whole video before I brought it up. If you actually enjoyed me talking about the series though, maybe you could actually check out some of my other content. For example, I recently made a video relating to this one about when Luffy will finally meet Shanks during the story's endgame. I'd definitely appreciate it if you watched that. Anyway, thanks for watching this video to the end.